10mm. It is exactly 1mm more badass than your standard 9mm is. And today, we're out here at the range in the freezing ass cold with the 10mm Smith & Wesson M&P. This is one I've been pretty excited about, so even though it is frigid out this morning, I'm happy to be here.
Now I know you're probably sitting there saying to yourself, "Self, that is not a stock 10mm M&P." And yes, you would be right. See, generally, I don't like to keep things stock, especially when it comes to an M&P. And there's just so much cool stuff that you can put on these guns. I don't really like to leave them stock at all. Floyd's Customs is obviously my go-to when it comes to the M&Ps. So what I did was I ordered a couple of the +3 mag extensions for the 10mm, as well as the magwell, because you know me, I just love magwells. And before the magazine ban hit here in Washington, I did get some spare mags from Brownells. The 10mm M&P isn't too bad. It does come with 2 of these all steel 15 round mags with the extensions, of course. Those are +3, so that's going to take you up to 18 rounds. Before you ask, yes, I did swap out the springs in these mags. In case you're wondering, those upgraded springs did come from Springer Precision. I'm going to try to leave some links down below, but you know how YouTube is. Sometimes they're cool with it, sometimes they aren't. See, I had some issues where the slide wouldn't lock back after the last round with these 10mm mags. What it really boils down to is the spring doesn't have quite enough strength with the additional, what is that, 1.5 inches, to be able to push that follower up solid enough to actually get that slide lock to do what it's supposed to do. That's something that is really common when it comes to mag extensions. It happens quite frequently. I didn't necessarily have that issue with my 9mm, but I was definitely having that issue with the 10mm.
I've got the stock 10mm M&P spring in this mag with the +3 mag extension. Now, let's go ahead and swap over to the Springer Precision spring in this mag. As you can see, this time the slide went ahead and held back.
The upgraded springs, they're great. They fix the issue. The trade-off is, though, is that I lost 1 round worth of capacity. Instead of holding 18 rounds, these now hold 17. You know what? I'm okay with that, though. It's all right. Really, the mags ran just fine before. The only issue, like I said, was the slide wasn't locking back after that last round. As far as feeding goes, they fed just fine. I didn't have any feeding issues whatsoever. If you're using any kind of mag extensions, whether it is the 10mm M&P, the 9mm M&P, any of the Glocks, any other guns that are out there, it is worth it to take a look at the springs over at Springer Precision. They've got a ton of stuff on their site. It's not just springs. They've got all kinds of other stuff. So, hit that link down below and go check them out. One of the things that I like that Smith & Wesson did here is that they made all of these 10mm M&Ps optics ready right out of the box. Regardless of what side of the optics debate that you find yourself on, I find it a huge bonus that these guns come from the factory, ready for a red dot. If you want one, great, install one. If you don't want one, that's fine too. You don't have to go buy a specific version that is optics ready. It's just, that's all they have. While I do have my issues with the mounting system that Smith & Wesson uses, at least they're taking a step in the right direction and making all of these 10mm optics ready. For more information about the Smith & Wesson Carry optics ready system and why I think it's garbage, as well as what adapter plate I use, go ahead and hit the link down below for that video. Obviously, I've got a hollow sun mounted on here. I went with the Holosun 507C. For me, this gun's primary function is going to be a hiking weapon. This is the gun that I'm going to grab when I go hiking or camping or whatever other outdoor activities that I may be doing. You never know what kind of predators you're going to come across deep in the woods here in the Pacific Northwest. Bear, cougar, bobcats, wolves, Bigfoot, possibly chupacabra? I don't know. Maybe. I'm not going to rule it out. There's some weird shit up in those hills. You never know what you're going to find yourself up against in the Cascade foothills. So the 10mm is a great choice for an outdoor gun. The reticle on this 507C was the reason that I chose it, because it has the 2 MOA dot along with that 32 MOA ring around the outside. Now for a concealed carry gun, I'm not a huge fan of that combination, although I do have that 507C here on my 9mm M&P. Of course, I've said this several times now, and I feel like for concealed carry use, that particular reticle is really cluttered. For concealed carry, I prefer just a standard dot, just big, easy to see, easy to pick up. This gun though, this gun is just a little bit different. I'm not looking for that exact same, level of precision that I would be with a concealed carry weapon. I mean, don't get me wrong, if I do need to use that 10mm while I'm out in the woods because of, I don't know, I encounter a bear, yeah, I do need it to be accurate and precise. But also, I'm not standing in a grocery store with, innocent bystanders all over the place. No, when I'm hiking out in the woods, I have a little bit more leeway when it comes to my aiming. That circle dot reticle that's on the 507C, I do find it cluttered, but also because of the circle around the outside, I find that it's fast to get target acquisition in most situations. I can draw the weapon and I can get it on target and I can take a shot that's going to be accurate enough to get the job done. Accurate enough to stop a wild animal in its tracks. And let's face it, that's what I got this gun for. So it's a little odd when they made this gun. They made the barrel length in two choices right off the bat. They have the 4.25 and the 4.6 inch. This, of course, is the 4 1/4, and I, for the life of me, don't understand why Smith & Wesson didn't make a 5-inch model. I know that the 10mm community, that's what they really wanted, was a 5-inch barrel. Are you going to see a difference in felt recoil or accuracy or velocity between the 4 1/4 and the 4.6? Honestly, probably not. Between the two options of barrel length that they have right now at this moment, I don't think you're going to see much of a difference at all. I was holding out for the 4.6 model, couldn't find one, so I ended up just settling on the 4 1/4, and honestly the gun is great. Since I picked mine up, I have been able to shoot the 4.6. Honestly, I don't notice a difference at all between the two of them. I've seen a couple of videos where they're testing them on a chronograph to see if there's any measurable difference in velocity between the two guns, and they're essentially the same. Now, I know there's some diehards out there that are going to comment down below about, you should buy the longest barrel length possible with a 10mm, and I get that, believe me, I do. All I'm saying is that from the testing that I've seen and that I've done personally, there's not much, if any, difference between the two. So if you're on the fence, if you're holding out, just buy whichever one it is that is in front of you and enjoy the damn gun. One of the things that actually did surprise me about this 10mm M&P was the level of recoil. I really did expect more recoil out of this gun just because of the polymer frame. Mostly as far as 10mm, what I've shot so far are big, heavy, long-barreled 1911 style 10mm. Those are the kind of guns that absorb almost all of the recoil, and you really can't tell the difference between how they shoot versus how a 9mm shoots. I did shoot a Glock 10mm several years ago. I didn't like it. I felt like the recoil was a little snappy. I also don't like the way that the Glock fits in my hand. So I had assumed that the polymer frame on this gun and the shorter barrel would make for an unwieldy shooting experience. That's really not the case though. This 10mm is a smooth shooting pistol. Part of the reason I think that it shoots as smoothly as it does is the grip texture and the ergonomics. There's no doubt that Smith & Wesson has one of the most ergonomic designs on the market. That grip angle, it just fits the natural angle of the human wrist. The texture that Smith & Wesson puts on these M&Ps, it is aggressive. It's unlike pretty much anything else that's out there on the market. When you combine the ergonomics and that grip texture, what you get is a gun that is easy to control and easy to hold on to, regardless of the shooting conditions that you find yourself in or the ammo that you happen to be putting through it. You know, it's funny because this gun is basically just like any other M&P other than the fact that it's chambered in 10mm. At the same time, yes, it does have some differences. As far as measurements go, the frame on the 10mm M&P is very similar to what the frame on my 9mm M&P is. The main difference is that the grip is just a little bit longer. The slide, of course, it is a little bit thicker than what the 9mm is, and I think that's because they modeled this gun. They used the 45 ACP as the base when they built this 10mm. If you own a 45 M&P, this gun is going to be really familiar to you. Really, if you own any M&P, it's going to feel familiar. Size-wise, though, it really is very similar to what the 45 is. The problem, as I see it with the sizing on this gun, is that it doesn't fit any of my holsters that I already have for the 9mm. This slide is just too thick to be able to use in the 9mm holster. And most holster manufacturers out there, the holsters that they have listed are going to be for the 9mm, thus they're not going to fit for this gun. It has to specifically be made for either the 45 or the 10mm, otherwise you're shit out of luck. For the life of me, I could not find any holster options out there when I first got the 10mm.
So I'm out here today and I have the G-Code Scorpion low vis gun belt on. Attached to that, I have my Pack and Holsters holster. We'll talk more about that a little bit later. We'll probably do a review on that here in the next couple of weeks. It's definitely not easy finding a holster that's going to fit the 10mm M&P, but I managed to pull that off, and so we're good to go.
As you can see, I did manage to secure a duty style holster here. I found a guy on Instagram. He's got a company called Pack and Holsters. He went ahead and ordered a mold, made this little gem for me, and shipped it on out. I'm going to go ahead and leave the contact information for Pack and Holsters down in that description. Just know this is a relatively new company. The guy's just starting up. He doesn't have his website up yet, but I'm really excited to bring you this holster right here. I'm going to be doing a full review on this holster, and it will be coming soon. Just spoiler alert, I don't have any negatives about it. It's a great holster, great price. They went ahead and set it up with the G-code adapter for me. You know, good things coming out of Pack and Holsters. First thing that jumped out at me with the 10mm M&P is this extended slide release. When the hell did Smith & Wesson start using that? And why can't I order one to retrofit onto my 9mm? I seriously love the redesign on that slide release. When I first picked up this gun, this slide release was so stiff, I legitimately had to pull back on the slide in order to release it and let it forward. I couldn't push down hard enough on that slide release to activate it and send the slide home. The break-in period for that, somewhere in the range between 150, maybe 200 rounds. At this point of the break-in, it is smooth, easy to operate with just one thumb. I really think the only thing to address here with the 10mm as far as, you know, the design goes is the trigger. So I've said this in a lot of videos, and I've been using an M&P for a long time. I got the first generation of M&P not too far after those guns were released, and I've carried one ever since. I had the first model, and then I had the compact version, and now, of course, the M&P 2.0. I got this probably 2 months after these guns were released. That first original M&P, honestly, yes, the trigger was absolute trash. It was horrible. The thing is, though, is at the time, I didn't know any better. When it finally came time for me to get the 2.0, That hinged trigger that this came with, that hinged trigger was awful. Not as bad as the original M&P, but it still wasn't good. That hinge trigger definitely doesn't compare to the Apex flat face trigger. Nowadays, Smith & Wesson is shipping all of their guns with these new triggers, and everybody keeps calling it a flat face trigger, but honestly, I'm not going to call it a flat face trigger. It's got a little curve to it. It's not quite flat. It sure in the hell ain't no Apex. What it is though, it is a drastic improvement over the last version of the triggers in the M&P. Yeah, it still has a ways to go, but it is definitely better. As of right now, we're closing in on 1,000 rounds through the 10 millimeter. The most recent trip puts us at somewhere in the range of 900 or so. So yeah, it's broken in quite a bit. The trigger on the 10 millimeter, it started out with a real gritty, almost gravelly type feeling. It has smoothed out quite a bit, I'm not gonna lie. It's smoothed out quite a bit, but it's still not smooth. It still has a little grit to it. All in all, Smith & Wesson could have done a lot worse with this thing. Hell, they've pushed out a lot worse in the past, so I'm going to call this a definite improvement over previous versions. If this were a gun that I plan on carrying as an EDC type weapon, I don't know that I'd be okay with this trigger. It would definitely have to be upgraded. Right now, Apex doesn't have a trigger upgrade for this gun. I like my carry guns with a little bit lighter of a trigger pull, shorter take up. To me, this Apex trigger, it's the apex of triggers for Conceal Carry. That's just a matter of preference though. Not everybody is going to be the same. Yes, it's a decent trigger. And for a gun that is primarily going to be used for hiking and outdoor use, I think it's actually going to work really well. So like I said, I have ran nearly 1,000 rounds through this gun. We're getting real close. Most of it has been this super cheap 180 grain SMB range ammo, basically. 10 millimeter isn't exactly the cheapest ammo that's out there. So as far as the more expensive stuff, you know, the more powerful hard cast ammo, I've put maybe 50 rounds of some Underwood hard cast through it. That's it. I don't even have the box for it anymore, so I don't have the specifics as far as, you know, the velocity or, you know, how many grains that ammo was. All I know is that shit is expensive as hell. I've heard a lot of people online complaining about the 10 millimeter M&P running hardcast ammo and having issues with it jamming up and stuff. Everybody wants to recommend, you know, different spring upgrades for the slide. Honestly, I didn't have any issues, but again, I only ran about 50 rounds of the stuff through it. I did have a couple of malfunctions with the cheap 180 grain stuff, but I'm going to chalk that up as, you know, break-in period.
First failure. I've got, let's see, 150, right about 175 rounds through it so far. First failure out of the gun. That was the last round out of the mag too. Well, I also ran a box of this Underwood Extreme Defender through it. I actually bought 2 of these. Good God, this shit's expensive. These are 100 grains and they run 1,825 feet per second. Allegedly, these are supposed to be able to go through bulletproof glass, although I don't have any bulletproof glass to test them with. These rounds ran just fine. I didn't have any hiccups whatsoever. At this point, I'm getting real close to about $1,000 into this review as far as just the ammo goes. It has been probably one of the more expensive reviews that I've done, which is why now's a good time to remind you that most of the links down below are paid affiliate links. So if you click those links and then purchase products, I will get a small kickback, and that
is what goes to pay for more ammo for more reviews. What I can tell you from my personal experience with this 10mm M&P is that it's been reliable. I have had, less malfunctions than I can count on one hand. You can run whatever ammo you want through it and it should run relatively well. When it comes to the heavier, hard cast rounds, yeah, it's going to have a little bit more felt recoil, but all in all, the gun's top notch. When we start talking about how a gun does in the accuracy department, there are a lot of things that go into that. Your optic, your ammo, your grip, how much coffee did you have before your range trip? All of these things go into how accurate you can be with the firearm itself. So I'm just going to throw this out there. What I noticed through my multiple trips to the range is that once I got my optic zeroed, this gun was really easy to stay on target. I've taken it to the indoor range as well as the outdoor gravel pit. I've shot at steel. I've shot at cardboard silhouettes. I've shot at standard targets. I have shot at random bits and pieces of garbage left over at the gravel pit. And believe me, people are disgusting. They leave a lot of garbage at outdoor shooting pits, and I don't appreciate it at all. In terms of accuracy, I have no complaints with this gun. It's a nice gun. It's 10mm. You can keep a good grip on it. It's accurate. It's fun to shoot. It runs smoothly, and I can hit the steel targets all day long. When it comes to trusting the firearm while I am deep in the woods, yes, I am happy to bring this one along with me. As far as a standard defense concealed carry type weapon, I'm going to stick with a 9mm for that one. 10mm, it really is just a beast of a round. And yeah, it's going to stop somebody or something in their tracks pretty much instantly. But I have concerns about over-penetration. This gun, as much as I love shooting it, this is not going to be my first choice if I hear an intruder in the middle of the night. I have kids in the house. I have neighbors' houses in close proximity. The last thing that I need is to have some sort of issue where a 10mm round goes through a wall and hits something that I don't want it to hit. But that's just me, again, personal preference. Every gun has its intended purpose, and for me, the 10mm M&P is a great outdoor gun. It's lightweight, it's comfortable in the hand, and it's accurate. It comes optic ready. You get 2 steel 15-round mags with this gun. The 10mm round itself, it's powerful, and it's relatively easy to handle. The trigger on this gun, it's decent. It's not great, but it's also not as bad as a lot of other guns that are on the market right now. All in all, I think the 10mm M&P is a great gun. It is exactly what I expected when Smith & Wesson announced that they were going to make a 10mm M&P. I feel like you're getting a lot of gun for what you're paying for this. And if you're looking for a polymer 10mm, but maybe you're not interested in buying a Glock, well, the M&P may just be your thing. The M&P is a great alternative, and this series of guns has come such a long ways since the original M&P. Okay, that's it for today, guys. Thanks for watching. I will see you back here real soon.